Recording and start streaming again, even though it says I'm live still. Who cares? We're streaming again. And let's see that I have a new one here. Okay. All right, brother, we're live. Oh, maybe we're still live on the same feed. I'm not sure what's going on, but anyways, I got your Twitter page up. I told you when we came in, I live in the Dominican Republic, and sometimes I have a problem with my, well, I call it hydro, but we down here it's the power. My electricity goes out 8 times a day, so my UPS is in a box behind me. It's going to be returned tomorrow. It died today. So normally I have an uninterrupted power supply that keeps the router cool and keeps my computer running. So the router and the computer, we're good. We're gold. But today I had a UPS die on me and I haven't been able to get it replaced. So welcome aboard. Sorry about the shitty intro. It happens. Gord Magill is my guest. We spoke 2 years ago in February. It's been a while, man. Lots happened. So for those that don't know who you are and what you're all about, take as long as you need to tell us who Gord Magill is, how he got to where he's at, and then we'll talk about current events of the day. Hit it, my brother.
Well, thanks for having me back, Jim. Yeah, you had me on your show to discuss matters regarding the Freedom Convoy. And one would think 2 years later, we wouldn't need to discuss this anymore, but both of us are expatriates from the Maple Gulag and the venal and vindictive regime of Justin Trudeau that continues to persecute people back home in Canada, of which I've taken a particular interest because that's wrong. And I continued writing about it. Much like yourself, I've had some issues with social media. I've been kicked off Twitter 4 times. I understand your YouTube show has been canceled. And, you know, many such cases, as the kids say. But I'm still out here trying to pay attention. And in the last year, I've been writing a lot about this situation in Alberta with these 4 men who were picked up at the Coutts, Alberta Freedom Convoy protest site, were arrested, and 2 of them are still in jail. They were charged with the most heinous accusations of conspiracy to murder police officers, amongst other charges. All of those charges were dropped against 2 of the men, and they pled out on other things. But in the meantime, the story around those 4 men, how they've been treated, how the media has ignored them, and what that story has to say about what's happened in Canada has been extremely interesting to me anyways, and the small number of people paying attention to it. It's been hard, man. It's been sort of hard watching all of this happen back home. As you know, I live in the United States now. You're in the Dominican Republic, but home is still home, and nobody is talking about a lot of this bad crap that's happening there. So I'm trying to.
What's your base? Where do you come from, and kind of what give you the stones to take this up? It's, you know, everything goes back to your upbringing. So tell us a little bit about where you came from, how you were brought up, and what was made important to you in your life.
Right. So I'll go back a couple of generations. My grandfather, my dad's dad, tank driver, Canadian Army, landed at Normandy, drove across Europe, blasted actual Nazis, not the ones that exist in people's imaginations today. Then served in the Pacific part of the conflict. He didn't get to go home after Europe. They sent him to India to go fight in Burma. And then when that wrapped up, he had to jump on an American troop ship to get back to New York, and then trains and automobiles and hitchhiking to get back to Sudbury, Ontario. And then A few years later, got in the trucking business. My grandpa was a trucker and a mechanic. My dad, both my uncles, truckers. And I don't know, I've got they instilled in me a pretty good work ethic and a pretty refined sense of what's right and wrong. And, like, you always help. You always look after your friends. You always defend that which is good and speak out when you see that which is wrong. And that's our sort of birthright and our responsibility as Canadians and people that live in a free country. So that's sort of where I came from. And I've been a trucker most of my life, and the COVID regime of Justin Trudeau sort of, I don't know, it struck me as everything about it was wrong, and how they treated people, how they divided people, and the sort of ongoing persecution of those who stood up against this has been a particular interest to me, just because it's wrong. So that's why I'm here speaking about it.
I had a friend of mine that I get drinks with once in a while. Sometimes it gets late. And she pointed to some neighbors, and she said to me, "Are you one of those anti-vaxxers?" I said, and I went like this. I said, "Nope, got one right here." And then it came up again. Next time, she calls me when she's drinking. She wants a friend, so I go over, I give her company. She's a nice lady. And so we got to the bottom of it. And I gave up trying to figure people out, because once you figure them out, you're bored. You know what I mean? Just enjoy their company. If you enjoy them, don't try and figure out what makes them tick, because it's boring after you figure them out. I stopped doing that when I was a kid, if you can believe that. Anyway, we get to the bottom of it. And she was almost killed by a flu vaccine 2 decades ago, 20 years ago. She was so sick, she said, "I almost died." And she was making an example. I don't want to be too specific because I still got friends in this country. And she went, blah, 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 and something about no vaccine, no vaccine. They were making a choice. And I'm being intentionally very vague. And she was put out because it wasn't inclusive. What do you mean, the non-vaccinated? Let's say she's looking for a boyfriend, but she doesn't want a vaccinated boyfriend because she doesn't want strange DNA inside or whatever, you know what I mean? Anyway, she is livid. And I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't, don't call me anti-vax, because I don't care if you take it. If you took it. But we got to the bottom of it, and it turns out she's anti-vax, but she was forced into the COVID vax. And she is so bitter about the fact that she was forced to take it, that every time she sees someone that didn't take it or is, quote, anti-vax, she treats them like second-class human beings, because way deep down inside, she didn't want to take it either. And I said, "You're more anti-vax than I am, and for good reason." So I'm like, "Oh, are you anti-vax?" Anyway, long story, but I think it's important because it helped me to understand where the rage comes from. Some of these people are raging out of fear that they made the wrong choice, out of regret, and out of anger that they were forced into it. She didn't, in her mind, didn't have a choice. And I'm like, hey, everyone's got a choice. You could have told your job to beat it. So I think it's kind of important background for me personally, and the conversation that we're about to have is we're trying to understand how we got so divided. You already mentioned, our politicians divide us, the media divides us, and here we are, right? And then it doesn't matter what the issue is, whether it's vaccines or the COVID or immigration or the freedom celebration in Ottawa or politics or who's the best leader or whatever. There's some background, especially when it comes to the vax, that a lot of people that are pro-vax are just pissed off that they had to take it. So anyways, thanks for listening. Good night now.
Yeah, no problem. Like I say, I'm like yourself. I don't care. Go ahead, take it. You make your own health decisions. Just extend the same courtesy to me and to others. That was never extended, and we were demonized and scapegoated as the problem. And that demonization and scapegoating continues to this day. And the media and the government they work for had to make some bad guys downstream of the convoy, because once the Freedom Convoy wrapped up and then they had the Public Order Emergency Commission, all the lies that were spun about the convoy and the protesters who were saying the same thing you and I did, just leave us out of it. They needed a bad guy, and the lies were exposed that showed there was no bad guys, except these 4 guys in Alberta who, there was a very famous photo of all these guns that were staged and boxes of ammo and flak jackets, and everyone made a big deal out of these guys in Alberta that were going to overthrow the government. And a lot of people took that narrative and have settled on it. But in the year that I've been investigating this particular case, everything the government and the media have said about those guys in Alberta is a lie. It's fiction. How they've been treated is abominable. Periods of solitary confinement, denied bail in a country that gives everybody bail, murderers, cop killers, rapists, poison merchants. Everyone gets bail. These guys were denied twice. And the code of silence around this case has been incredible. You'll remember back in the day, a young gentleman by the name of Omar Khadr, whose father took him to, fight in Afghanistan post 9/11. And Mr. Khadr, young Khadr, was one of the survivors of a firefight involving U.S. troops. An American medic was killed. Khadr got stuck with the charge that he murdered him. Did a bunch of time at Gitmo. Whatever you think about that story, and I have very nuanced views about it myself. However, whatever you think about it, the Canadian media made Omar Khadr a household name for a decade. We heard nothing about this kid who was kept in Gitmo, and Stephen Harper should have done more to bring him home, and being tortured because torture did go on in Guantanamo Bay. And his trial, his court proceedings, his being brought back to Canada, we got all of these instant play-by-plays, and everybody in Canada knew who Omar Khadr was. Okay. Now we have these guys in Alberta subject to similar treatment in our very own prisons in Alberta. They're not, accused of killing a medic. There was no dead bodies at the protest site in Coutts. In fact, there was no violence at Coutts at all, just like there was no violence at any of the Freedom Convoy protest sites except at the hands of the police and at the hands of counter-protesters wearing their masks, living in fear, believing whatever Justin Trudeau told them. Those were the only violent people. And these 4 guys ended up being the legitimating factor in the Public Order Emergency Commission ruling from Justice Rouleau. They were demonized in the media by Trudeau's public safety minister, Marco Mendocino. And the media basically, showed up, said the most ridiculous things about them, set the narrative that they were guilty, and then stopped talking about them after that. And they still haven't gone to trial yet. We are now 2.25 years later, still no trial for any of the things they've been charged with. And the charges against 2 of those 4 men have all been dropped. No curiosity on the part of the media or the establishment at all about why this is, about why these guys were essentially political prisoners, why 2 of them spent lengthy periods of time in solitary confinement, having not yet faced trial or been found guilty of anything. This is all happening in Canada in 2023 and 24. And not a word will you hear about it from our friends in the mainstream media.
Well, it's hard not to get wrapped up in that. And, I saw Max and the other guy that was helping out there. My brain goes to mush when I'm recording. I'm live. Max, and they're the Freedom Convoy. Anyways, they held a joint press conference in Ottawa somewhere. Well, they were asking Trudeau to come out and talk to them, and they were prepared for that, but that didn't happen. And I had friends from home that are saying to me, Jimmy, why aren't you broadcasting this? I go, for what? I'm trying to survive in the Dominican Republic, trying to sell real estate. Why? Well, for the clicks, for the notoriety, for the traffic. Why? I don't care. And then Randy Hillier and Bernier and someone else, they're holding this press conference. And I think Bernier was fielding questions from the press that was there. And suddenly I was flooded with patriotism. You know, I'm not saying I miss Canada, but for the first time in a long time, I felt really proud of my country, even though what was going down wasn't so cool. And the convoy didn't make me feel proud. You know, it was kind of cool to watch and stuff like that. But when Bernier was fielding questions and saying all the right things, and I politically shifted from a lefty. You know, in 1993, I ran for the Green Party, and I ran another 8 times for those guys, provincially, federally. I even ran for leadership in 06. You talk about, you know, Cotter. You know, I remember Elizabeth May. I was far gone from the Greens when she got up there, half snapped and made him a hero. You know, it was embarrassing on media night or whatever that night is where they make fun of the media or whatever.
You know the fun part about the Green Party thing, I as well was once a card-carrying member of the Green Party of Canada.
Wow. And
in the same neighborhood as you, because I believe we're both from the Niagara region, right? Like, I kind of grew up in Beamsville, and you used to broadcast out of St. Catharines. Mm-hmm. And so we're sort of from the same neck of the woods in Canada, and we also have this, like, you know, I think both of us, not to say that we were ever lefties, but, like, you know, legitimate concern for the world, seeing, you know, growing up in the shadow of the war on terror and, you know, the occupation of Afghanistan for 20 years, the utter destruction of Iraq and Syria, all of the, like, lies and malfeasance of the Bush administration, and then watching Stephen Harper try and get Canada involved in it when Jean Chrétien rightly said no fucking way. You know,
and Harper ripped up a lot of the environmental libraries and history and shattered a bunch of the regulations. And, you know, I hated Harper. You know, when Trudeau came in, I was actually like, oh, it's a new day. Now, I don't know if it was just my hate for the Conservatives back then because I was still a Green and a lefty, and he was taking, in my mind, maybe I'm not that educated on it, but I remember that time and going, oh, this guy's evil. And I gave Justin Trudeau a chance. You know, even I overlooked his gender diverse cabinet walking up the hill. I was still rubbing my hands and going, okay, it's a new day. I remember watching the swearing in or whatever that day when he did that little stunt to, you know, walking with his cabinet, his, you know, again, gender diverse, his, you know, half women or whatever. Like, whatever happened to meritocracy? I want it back. I want to bring back shaming. No, fat is not beautiful. It's unhealthy. Stop it. You're not perfect just the way you are. No, you've got a lot of work to do. All of us do. You know what I mean?
And you shouldn't be prime minister because your dad was.
Well, you know what? I had a buddy of mine that afforded himself about an hour sitting at the bar with Justin Trudeau. And we're both not liberals, but lefties, you know, a socialist mindset. We can afford to take care of everyone. You know, if you take care of people the first time, especially in the medical industry, they don't come back again and again and again. But we know the medical system's designed to make you sick, keep you sick, and profit from you. But anyway, he had a conversation with Justin Trudeau, and this is way before he became prime minister, and he said, Jimmy, like, honest to God, he can't even carry like a social bar conversation. He's so thick and stupid that it's impossible to speak to this man. And he got elected because he has connections, because he's got nice hair and a good last name, and he had the right people around him. He's still got the right people around him. They're making him say all the right things for their puppet, and he's become actually a pretty seasoned actor. I mean, he's gone from dumb as shit to being able to appear intelligent because he's memorized all the scripts. You don't need to be.
All those years as a drama teacher stuck. He memorized the lessons he was giving his own students.
That's mean, Gord. You don't have to get mean.
That's reality.
No, and you know what? There's so much wrong with the Trudeau regime now for me, and I was a guy that gave him a chance on the way in because of my hate for Stephen Harper, and now. I'm not wishing Stephen Harper was back, but I wish we had a man in the
I did not vote in the 2015 election. I was in Australia at the time, and I would not have voted for Mr. Trudeau. I've never been a fan of the Liberal Party of Canada. They're the political wing of the Laurentian elite, the sort of generational wealth. The descendants of the family compact, the sort of, red Tories that ran the place back in the day. But like, it would be cool if they were actually red Tories. They're fucking commies nowadays. But I've never been interested in them or their politics. And now they're being propped up by Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, who are like, Trudeau and the Liberals could, they could try and say, that they're part of the sort of, new neoliberal empire. And then, they take orders from the WEF. They represent the Laurentian elite. They're not really communists, but like they're being supported by out and out communists like Jagmeet Singh and the NDP, who's like now Jagmeet Singh has like more power than any other Western politician in the world relative to how he was voted in, the party he represents, and the percentage of the vote that he actually got. Because of this arrangement that Trudeau made with Singh immediately after the Freedom Convoy, that nobody voted for, by the way. And the whole point of that arrangement was to keep Trudeau from being confidence motioned out of Parliament, given how utterly unpopular he was downstream of his handling of the Freedom Convoy way back in 2022. So this anti-democratic arrangement run by commies, and now we see this inquiry that's been going on this week into evidence from CSIS showing that the Chinese Communist Party has now provably interfered in at minimum of 2 Canadian elections, provably assisted members of the Liberal Party get elected in the last 2 elections. And there's other evidence showing that the Chinese Communist Party has been balls deep in Canadian politics, at least since Mulroney, right? So like I choose the term communist very carefully because that's exactly what's going on here. The CCP is up its ass in Canada, and one has to wonder if some of that influence has made Trudeau treat the convoy as he did and continue the persecution as he's doing it. So over and above the Coutts guys, I've come to find out that there are people who are just like regular old protesters, right? They showed up in Ottawa to support the convoy, waving a flag, holding a sign, maybe just bringing a coffee to the truckers in Ottawa, got picked up after the invocation of the Emergencies Act, charged with mischief, failing to obey a police officer, some stupid charge, right? Then they go to court, beat it, are acquitted, and now Trudeau and the Crown are appealing those acquittals, right? So in the United States, there's a legal concept called double jeopardy, where when you are accused of something by the state, you go to court, you beat the state in court, that's it. They can't come after you a second time. It's over, right? Apparently that's not so in Canada. And I didn't know this until Trudeau started coming after peaceful protesters, right? I use the term venal and vindictive to describe the government in Canada in 2024 because that's what they are. They're trying to punish people who are merely peacefully protesting. I'm gonna have a lady on my podcast here soon named Christine Decaire, who's now going back to court after having successfully been acquitted of all charges stemming from her just showing up in Ottawa to support the convoy. And then we have the ongoing charades of Chris Barber and Tamara Leach in Ottawa, longest running mischief trial in Canadian history. Then there's the Coutts guys. And then there's all these other no-name people, Guy Meister. There's just dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds of people who are still in court over 2 years after the convoy because Trudeau won't let it go. You know, I bump into people, I get comments on my podcast, you know, people say to me in passing, man, Gordo, why are you still talking about the Freedom Convoy 2 years later? It's like a couple of reasons. The first one is like all of this is happening. Like, it's not that I want to be talking about the convoy and relitigating all this. It's Trudeau is still punishing people, right? Like the job's not done. The Freedom Convoy is not over while all of these cases are outstanding. And then I keep hearing stories of like how people in Ottawa were so happy that the Freedom Convoy was there. One of my friends is a DJ that would like play those dance music parties in Ottawa in the middle of the night during Freedom Convoy. And there was just all these like intimate human connections. And the government and the media in Canada are trying to dissolve that. They're trying to like attack the thing that brought people together to say, enough is enough. We're going to get our country back. We're going to treat each other as humans with love and kindness and respect. And we're going to, you know, heal up after the nonsense of COVID. And the government is still coming after these people 2 years later. It's unbelievable.
I hear you, brother. On a completely different, I want to get back to the Coutts boys and find out, you know, you can even go from the beginning and how this is progressively fallen apart. Are you in favor of proportional representation? In other words, if a party gets 35% of the seats, they get 35% of the popular vote, they get 35% of the seats, and you pick from the list of your all-stars on your team. I know it's undemocratic in that way, but nothing's perfect. But proportional representation in every democracy around the world, or republic or dominion or whatever you want to call it, where they have free elections, most of them use some form of proportional representation. There's only two countries, the States and Canada. And now that Canada's got, I don't know, 5 or 6 parties, if you throw the PPC in there, because the PPC is going to start making an impact. They got 5-6% now. Once they reach 10%, they're going to get someone elected in somewhere, and they're, you know, like it or not, Max is not going away. And I'm not, you know, preaching for Max right here, but I've been trying to get in his ear, and I think he's open to the possibility of getting that in the platform. In fact, he said live on my show that it would be in there. I think even the last time I went back to him, it's still not there, but I take him at his word, and very few politicians, I believe what they're going to say, but he seems principled. He doesn't care what the polls say. His policy doesn't change. It's always the same. And so if you have proportional representation, then the Greens get their 6% seats. Max gets his 6% seats. And then they can be spoilers or they can build a coalition. And then more so the coalition you voted for. Right? Because whoever ends up making the balance of power, they were actually elected proportionally. So there's no more 35% popular supported governments getting a majority mandate, or even worse, somebody like Trudeau coming in with around 30 and then making a deal with the NDP at 19 and getting a majority and running it till 2025. You could have that scenario as well, but at least it's more proportional in the way that everyone's going to get a say. So I just want your thoughts on that before we get to the core issue.
Oh boy. Let's look to Germany for a moment. Germany has a variation on the mixed member proportional system you're proposing. And right now, Germany is beginning to pass the most anti-democratic, anti-free speech laws you've seen since Hitler was in power. And the folks on the sort of left, center left, are ganging up on the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland, and accusing them of all being Nazis and this and that and everything else. And they're legitimately working together to box off any attempt at reforming what's going on in Germany, especially downstream of their insane energy policies that's like reduced Germany to like begging for energy imports from other countries. And I just want to criticize. I'm not criticizing your position on this. I'm just saying, like, sometimes these coalitions actually don't go the way you want them to in a mixed member proportional system. Sometimes they actually turn out to be really toxic and bad. It's not always going to work out the way you want. And, I like Mr. Bernier. I like the PPC. I like the fact there's like a wide range of parties you could possibly choose from. In a first past the post system, they're not going to do very well. Does that suck? Yes. In my journey, my political journey, and watching what's happened downstream of the convoy, I've sort of come around to this idea that like there's no solution in politics. I think there's like a deeper spiritual, metaphysical problem in Western society, and our politics being shitty is just a manifestation of that. And I think it has to go deeper. Would I like to see an MMP coalition where we can like fight back against the Laurentian elite with like, the conservatives and the PPC and the Bloc and whoever working towards that? I mean, it's a nice fantasy. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm a little bit of a cynic about democracy these days. I'm a little bit of a cynic about progressive secularity, given what it's wrought under the COVID regime, and given that a significant majority of people in the West now no longer support sovereign nations. They're more interested in transnational global corporations and rule by ideology rather than the voting public. So I'm not sure what the answer is. Maybe MMP is it in Canada. I don't know. I just remain skeptical.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a number of things we can look at it and how it relates to political reform, whether it's more serious and carried out, ethics violations. They shouldn't be able to get away with what they're doing. And, you can say, well, vote them out. But we didn't vote for this kind of coalition that we've got here. And we didn't vote for Trudeau and Singh making this deal to prevent one of the sort of countermeasures to the failure of Parliament, the failure of democracy, which is the confidence motion. And they've blocked off the option of confidence motioning Trudeau out of power. I didn't vote for that. You didn't vote for that. Most Canadians didn't vote for that. I don't think anybody approves of that except the PMO and Jagmeet Singh, because he gets to bask in the glory of holding leverage in this country, which, for all intents and purposes, he might as well not even be a member of. I mean, he seems more interested in defending Khalistani separatists from back in India. And I would suggest to Mr. Singh that he give up his Indian passport and any connections to India and become a Canadian if he wants to stick around. This is Canada. This is not India. I'm not worried about the Punjab. It's not my business. It shouldn't be yours either while you're sitting in Parliament. It's Canada. Let's deal with Canada. Canada's got lots of problems. I don't care about Khalistan. Well, I appreciate your answer to the proportional representation question, and it just strikes me as so deep and thoughtful and reasonably, formulated, and we use the whole stereotype, you're a trucker, dude. Anybody ever say to you, what the hell, dude? What the hell? You're a truck. Look at you. You are. Look at the rig on your Twitter. That's like 4 tanks long or whatever. That's a big rig, man. You're not supposed to be a guy that's deep and thoughtful like this.
Well, contrary to popular opinion, being on the road a long time lets you consider things, gives you time to listen to great podcasts like yours, amongst many others. I like to read. I like to pay attention. I don't let trucking define me to a point. Like, yeah, I've spent most of my life behind the wheel. That's true. I write on the trucking business, which is kind of how I got into this. Before I ever started writing for Newsweek or ended up with a Substack and talking about all this stuff back home in Canada, I wrote about trucking labor market issues very rarely. And then I ended up on a couple of podcasts and I don't know, started fooling around with Twitter, went home to support the Freedom Convoy, and then it all just sort of happened. But I think if you have like a well-considered, well-thought-out opinion, you should write it down. You know, one of the things Jordan Peterson says is that like writing makes you a better thinker. It helps you consider your thoughts. That's very true. I think everybody should write if you have the time and if you have the like inclination and the fire burning inside you. And it could be about any particular topic. Just do it. Just go write it out, keep writing, publish it. People will push back against you. I've been wrong about things. I've made little mistakes here and there. I've had to refine my ideas. As people call it, it's called the discourse. You know, you're in a sort of discursive, engagement with your fellow humans and other ideas, and that like makes your ideas better. And you can take what doesn't work, throw it away, find something new, consider it, maybe like plug some of that into what you're already talking about. And so, you know, everything I'm doing sort of like I say, I don't claim to have all the answers about anything. I might not be right. You can disagree with me. That's fine. I encourage everyone to go to my Substack, autonomoustruckers.substack.com. Read my stuff. If you think I'm wrong, send me an email, gordylocks@protonmail.com. I will talk to anybody. You know, I have my own podcast. If you like tell me I'm wrong and I'm an idiot and you want to tell me about it in public, I'll put you to the front of the line. Let's go.
Nice.
You know?
That's awesome.
Like, why not? You know, I mean, maybe I am wrong. You know,
maybe you learned something. Yeah. Yeah, heaven forbid you should have somebody on you disagree with and you learn something, you know what I mean? That's great. I didn't know you were doing the podcast, so that's awesome. Look forward to seeing this on there. I'll make sure I get you a copy over. Yeah, okay, so let's, and we can go back and forth. I don't ever have any scripted questions. I don't have any agenda. Normally, it doesn't matter who comes on my show. They get the same treatment all the time. So
Yeah. I'm always flying by the seat of my pants, too. I feel you.
Yeah, it's, that's the only way I've ever done it, even back in radio. So tell us about the Coutts. Why is it the Coutts 2 now? How did it start? How did it fall apart? And what do you expect to happen?
Oh, man, I'm going to try and give you the condensed version. Somebody's going to have to write a book about this when it's all said and done. It might be me. I hope it's somebody else because there's so much.
You know what? Let me interrupt you there before you get started. I told Rob Primo the same thing. He's kind of like an activist, and I don't know if you know Mr. Freedom, Lord Freedom, Josh Bigger. He's coming on in a few weeks as well.
Josh Bigger. I recorded a show with Josh Bigger. I haven't released it yet. We went to the same high school. We're both Beamsville boys.
Yeah, he's completely insane, and I love him. He's absolutely insane, and wow. And again, there's some real depth there to that dumb roofer. You know what I mean? Like, he's just, and he, you know, people always say to me, Jimmy, you know what I love about you is you don't care. And I pretend I don't care pretty well, I guess. I got them all fooled because I'm deeply sensitive. Anyone that knows me knows I care. You know, like...
Well, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't. Like, if we didn't care, why would we buy a microphone and a laptop and put ourselves out there and let people attack us? And, you know, our faces and our voices and these videos are going to be on the internet forever now. You know, that's a social cost. That's possibly a liability. Why would you do that if you didn't care?
Yeah.
We only do this because we care.
Yeah. And, you know, you mentioned Jordan Peterson, and it makes me, you know, he's been so helpful to me. But so was Napoleon Hill. And I don't put any of that stuff into action either. You know what I mean? So is Tony Robbins has been incredibly healthy and important in the way I handle life and process things because life comes at you, man. And Jordan Peterson, one thing about you say about writing, and recently I heard... Well, I've always known him to say this. I've taken the Jordan Peterson Psychology 101 YouTube course 10 times because I find it fascinating. The human mind is like, it's mind-meltingly, for me, it's interesting, right? But he said, just do it badly. If you got something to write, complete it. and complete it horribly. Get it done. You can
and
always,
then you can go back and go over it again and
You
practice
just
the next time and
get
just
it
keep
done.
doing it.
You know, I love that. So anyways, it's funny that you mentioned him because I think he's opened up the minds of so many. And I think the majority, I mean, YouTubers are men watching it mostly, you know what I mean? I think he's helped a whole lot of people, men and women around the planet, just from, you know, even my understanding myself that that personality test he's got. It's amazing and it's accurate. Like I took it years and years ago. So, it's great that you brought him up. But yeah, Bigger, again, a guy that's deeply cares, and he's deep on some of the issues too. He just doesn't come with opinions in comedy. Now he's got a lot of that. And he's a rock star and whatever, so I'm not blowing Josh Bigger's horn right now. I guess I am a little bit. Honk, honk. Honk, honk. Get it? You know, if I had been back in Canada, and I've been friends with Josh for a few years now. If I had been back in Canada, I would have been in jail. I know it, because I would have been on the front line with freedom. And somehow I would have been the guy, because my mom always says, Jimmy, as soon as you speed, you get caught. So just don't lie and don't break the rules, because you get caught for everything. You know, you can't get into it. Anyways, Coutts. You can condense it as much as you want and elaborate wherever you want as well.
So the Coutts guys, I believe, are being used as fall guys to legitimate Trudeau's invocation of the Emergencies Act, because there was no violence nor threat thereof anywhere else. And the government settled. I believe the railroading of the Coutts guys goes to the highest levels. I believe that the PMO and the sort of committee, the incident response group that was sort of monitoring things across the country, were heavily influenced by this activist group called the Canadian Anti-Hate Network, who spun all kinds of lies and fantasies about some of the people at Coutts. I believe that the government needed that fantasy to legitimate what they were doing, and they bought into it. And the 4 guys at Coutts got arrested and have been used as such. Now, they got arrested. The Public Order Emergency Commission took place in October and November of 2022. Pre-trial hearings for the Coutts guys were specifically delayed until after that. Right? They didn't even get into court to discuss pre-trial stuff until after the POEC ruling came down. Interesting. Justice Rouleau, in his rambling 2,000-page report on the POEC, cites the threat alleged by the government at these guys in Coutts as a factor for why he sort of reluctantly allowed for Trudeau to be within his right to invoke the Emergencies Act before any of those allegations had been tested in court. Why didn't anybody ask that question? The men from Coutts were denied bail in a country. In the 2018, a bill passed in Canada that expanded the use of bail, right? Giving criminals bail, allowing people out, and then we'll get you back into court later. But while we're waiting, you can still be free. Everybody in Canada gets bail. The 4 Coutts guys were denied bail. Not a single one of them guys had a criminal record. One of them, minor drug handling charge when they were a kid or something for like some hits of ecstasy. But otherwise, perfectly upstanding citizens, working class dudes, no criminal record, nothing. Denied bail. And then we're denied bail again. Chris Carbert applied for bail last year. The, crazy judge in charge of it, this liberal appointed judge in Alberta, Jonna Kubik, a donor to the Liberal Party 26 times, allowed the motion to go forward knowing full well she was going to reject it, and then set the hearing for this application for bail right before Christmas, got all their hopes up that they might get out before Christmas 2023, and then said no. Right? Kicked it to January and then said no. So like a cat toying with a mouse. Right? So this woman, this judge in Alberta, Jonna Kubik, she should be thrown off the bench. She's a fucking psychopath. the prosecutor, Stephen Johnston, right? This guy is prosecuting this case, but he was already at Coutts. He was working on behalf of the RCMP and the Crown before anybody even got charged. So we've got a conflict of interest before the case even starts, right? This guy who was there casing the joint for the cops and the RCMP is now prosecuting it. Why doesn't anybody ask any questions about that, right? Why hasn't anybody asked the questions about why these guys were over and above being denied bail? Jerry Morin and Tony Olenek were both kept in solitary confinement for like periods of somewhere around 80 to 90 days each, having never sat foot in a trial yet, never mind been found guilty, right? All these communications back and forth between the RCMP and the government, you know, one of the things that happened with this case at the beginning was that there was a publication ban request brought forward by the defense. The original publication ban, I think it was August of 2022, because the media, what the media were doing, were taking details from these documents called ITOs, information to obtain. This is what the government, the cops would use to apply for warrants. ITOs are basically allegations. There's nothing proven in them. And the media was repeating them out to the public, which was basically poisoning the well of getting impartial jurors. So the Crown said, or the judge said, yep, I agree with the defense. We have to put a publication ban on that. Okay. But what has happened is the media has hid behind the publication ban and said, we can't talk about this case at all, right? Although all of the other facts of the case, the publicly known facts of the case, are not subject to the ban. Why were these guys denied bail? What about the political implications? How far up to the chain of command through the RCMP and to the PMO are the directions to arrest these guys? There's all kinds of questions. The situating of this case in the wider political context of the fact that they were used to legitimate the Emergencies Act, that this is basically a political railroading job. All of these questions that a functioning fourth estate would ask in a legitimate democracy were not asked because the media was hiding behind a publication ban, which did not apply to these very important questions, right? So we have all of that going on. Pre-trial hearings finally start getting rolling last year. And now a whole bunch of the evidence that the government claims they have has been knocked out, right? Because the RCMP were rushing paperwork. They were trying to, they got this wiretap, an imminent harm wiretap that's only good for 24 hours. Then they have to apply, like you apply for a warrant, to get another wiretap. They did not do that. So a whole bunch of the evidence, quote unquote, that they got from these wiretaps, which there was none to begin with, nothing from the wiretaps indicated criminal activity or threat thereof. All of that's being tossed. The warrants used to search their travel trailers being tossed. All of the evidence, all of these guns, they brought this propaganda photo of all these assembled guns, most of which didn't apply, that did or were not owned by guys at Coutts. Jerry Morin never had any weapons at Coutts whatsoever. He barely spent any time there, but he got arrested anyway. His wife was charged when she went to an RCMP detachment to find out what was going on with her husband. There was just all this crazy stuff. 13 people were arrested over the course of 2 days, but only 4 did 2 years in prison with no bail and no trial. What about the other 9 people? You know, there are trials now for the sort of organizers of Coutts, the people who stepped forward to, you know, interface with the RCMP, like Marco van Huygenbos. His trial is ongoing right now. And all he did was basically like what Tamara Litch and Chris Barber did, which was sort of, you know, step into the fray, put his best foot forward, talk to the media, talk to the cops, talk to community leaders in Coutts. And now the government's using that against him. And they're trying to like charge him with mischief and put him in jail for 10 years. And all he did was like interface between the protesters and the community and the cops. He just like, he stepped up. He stepped up to the plate. He was a good guy. And now the government's trying to like railroad him. So there's just, the whole thing stinks. And The media are not talking about it because they've already made their decision. Freedom Convoy, bad. They're the bad guys. They're the people we need to have as the evildoers in the minds of the average CBC Canadian that just believes whatever the media tells them. And that's how we have to treat it, and we have to approach it legally. And these guys are basically getting fucked.
Well put, man. Could you scrape some passion up somewhere, dude? And
I'm very passionate about it because, as I said at the beginning of the show, my grandfather drove a tank, landed at Normandy, spent a year and a half or a year or whatever in Europe killing actual Nazis and Wehrmacht, and risked his life in a Canadian uniform supposedly for our freedoms, for Western civilization. And I'm his descendant, and I am watching this communist fucking prick Justin Trudeau ruin the country my grandfather fought for. Not on my watch, brother. No.
I'm in Sosua. I'm on the North Shore of Dominican Republic. And, I never thought I'd leave my country. I radio show, I ran for mayor, not to win, but to keep the guy out. Wow. I'm so grateful to COVID, of all things. And I saw it coming from the very beginning. For a minute, they had me because I'm a cigarette smoker. And I don't know how long it was. For a minute, I was like, oh, I'm fucked. And then I remember, I don't get sick. I've never had the flu that I ever remember. I got dengue fever down here this year. I know it was because I was mad at myself because I've been taking hemp oil. My immune system should be good. But when a mosquito bites you and it's genetically altered dengue fever, you go down for 9 days. Where was I going with that, Gordo?
Where were you going with that?
I started out by saying something, and I had a brain fart.
But, well, you had to bounce to the Dominican Republic because Canada has turned into a communist shithole.
Only, and I'm still trying to figure out what my path is down here, because I saw it coming. They had me scared for a minute, and then turned out the smokers didn't disproportionately die of COVID, strangely enough. There are things that a nicotine load, I know it's hard on your lungs, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to tell anyone to pick up smoking, but there are benefits of having a nicotine load in your bloodstream. There's certain things that you don't get when you got that. I won't get into that now. But I wasn't fooled for very long. I don't get sick. I've never taken a flu shot that I know of. Maybe I had them forced on me. Maybe everyone got them in grade 4 and 5. I don't ever remember getting one. I don't remember needle day at school for the flu shot. And I never had the flu. Dengue was rough this year, and I thought it was the flu. I'm like, wait, I don't get the flu. So, I don't take flu shots. I'm not taking the new shot. Simple as that. Do whatever you want. But I saw it coming. I knew that only the old and the obese were dying, and the kids weren't getting it. I mean, it didn't take a genius to see this coming as it came down. Objectively, the old, the obese, and kids were safe.
Roughly speaking, that's correct, yes.
Yeah, and I wasn't fooled. I've been saying the same thing all the time. But when Trudeau said that I couldn't leave my country if I was unvaccinated, I was like, I had an out, and I took it, and it wasn't even a difficult decision.
Yeah, it wasn't even leaving the country. They made it. They made it so that you couldn't even travel within it. I tell this to Americans, and like they're completely like, WTF? I'm like, no. In federally regulated areas of society in Canada, especially travel, no airports, no trains, no nothing for travel if you didn't show a vax card. That's medical apartheid. And I choose those terms very well. People get mad at me when I say apartheid. I'm like, No, that's just the Afrikaans term for apart, right? That means separate. And that's what they did. If you chose to manage your own health affairs, you were kept separate in the eyes of the government and you were treated differently. That's not supposed to happen in our society. Again, my grandfather landed at Normandy, fought against people that would impose this crap on us, and now it's happening. So, I mean, it's a totally reasonable response on your part to leave, right? Like we are seeing signs of creeping totalitarianism all across the board in Canada. And I mean, the Freedom Convoy is just sort of like one part of it. It's so much broader.
I remember I was really well connected with my local music scene. And in Niagara, they've got an unbelievable, as you probably know, an unbelievable pocket of talent. And I only know that from journeymen and guys that have toured the world playing their music, that Niagara is special. It's got a special crew of guys. And I lost more friends over my take because I was mouthy about it too. I tried to show the stats, world meter every week. I was showing, here's the infected, positive cases or positive test does not equal cases, and then the deaths, and no one was listening. But I remember going to a concert. I won't say where it was because who cares. And one of my local boys were playing, and they asked me for the Vax Pass. I had a prepaid ticket, and I'm like, keep your money, man. And then after that, I was like, it didn't take much. And when they closed the border, so I'm very grateful for the COVID, but your guys, and you're right, and thank you for naming as many as you did. There's some your guys are everyday guys, and I say your guys, the guys that, you're taking the time to talk about in Coutts, and I could see it coming. A stash of guns, overthrow the government. It's the same. As much as the Liberals give Pierre Poilievre shit because Alex Jones gave him a plug the other day, the Liberals certainly do engage in an American style of politics where they're all MAGA bad. It's all MAGA. It's racist and all. I mean,
it's a deeper pathology, right? Because as you know, as a born and bred Canadian, the media, the Cathedral Nord, as I like to borrow from Curtis Yarvin's neologism, trains Canadians to always be comparing ourselves to the neighbors, to the U.S. So we import when nothing is happening in Canada and we're bored and we feel insecure, like collectively, we import the neighbors' pathologies and try and make them ours, right? So like you saw this with Trudeau, he was trying to have his own January 6th, and then they have to talk about Alex Jones, and they always have to talk about Americans and their guns, and it's just like Canada there's this navel gazing insularity and insecurity mass cultural psychosis, and it manifests itself in all these ways. And once you've left the country, once you've grown up a little bit and been around, you see it immediately everywhere you look and how these people act, and it's so disgusting. And it's that mentality that let people ignore facts to be more attached to their feelings, which are given to them by Daddy Justin, who's going to save them from Wuhan plague. And that's why there's people who still think the Freedom Convoy were violent, and they believe lies about the Freedom Convoy that have been shown in court in the POEC to be total fabrications by the government. The superintendent of intelligence of the OPP said everything that was said in the media was baloney, and that it was counterproductive, and that the government was way out over their skis. All this proof, nope, doesn't matter. You're bad guys. And that's what's happening to the Coutts guys. They are suffering from the remnants of this stupid mentality that played on people's fears, right? There's no amount of facts is going to get people to a certain type of person in Canada to change their mind and have them admit that they've been lied to and manipulated based on their fear and based on however many decades of cultural programming growing up in Canada. It's just not going to happen. So all we can do is just keep repeating the truth about this. And that's what I do. So I have a Substack, I have a podcast. I talk about this Coutts thing because it's so important for people to understand these guys got railroaded. Here are the facts of the case. Here is what the government did. Here's what the media did. This is what's going on. 2 of those guys walk free. Nobody is bothered to ask why or why all the charges were dropped, right? The other 2 are still in there because the government's trying to save face. And given what I know about the case, some of the things I can't repeat at the request of the 2 men's legal teams and their advocates, they're going to walk too. It's just like there's nothing there. And these guys got railroaded. And the thing is that everybody, broadly speaking, believes in certain like pillars of like Western civilization. And, we grew up in Canada. Everybody gets the right to free speech. Everybody has the right to protest. Actually, you don't. If you show up at a protest and you're totally peaceful and the government can just pluck you off the street and say, hey, we're going to accuse you of conspiring to murder police officers. We're going to put you in jail for 2 years, deny you bail, postpone your trial, have the media run a smear campaign against you and make your life hell. Do you have the right to protest? Do you have the right to freedom of speech? These are serious questions that have been brought forward by this case, and the media and the government are not contending with it because they know they're wrong, and they just want it to go away. I'm not going to let it go away.
And that's why the Liberal government will continue to have Canadians' backs.
Yeah, backs against the wall.
Well, you said a lot, man. How long are we keeping you here? Oh, there's
Right.
an hour already. I don't want to cut into any more of your family life, man. I know you got to tell us about your family. How you doing, man? What do you got?
So,
what are you cooking in the house there?
I have a beautiful American wife named Jenna, who is currently upstairs.
Thank you, Jenna. We love you.
With my beautiful American Canadian children, Vivian, who will be 6 next month, and Georgia, who just turned 4 in March. And it's almost bedtime, and I'm going to have to bounce off and go help Mom with bedtime.
You're one man with 3 women.
I'm outnumbered heavily,
Well,
yes.
I much respect to you, my friend.
No, it's all good. If anybody wants to find out more about this stuff, I have a podcast called Voice of Gord. It's making fun of my voice. It's sort of self-referential, self-deprecating humor, which is a feature of Canadian humor. I talk about this. I talk about trucking. I talk about truck and labor market economics, Canadian politics. All this Coutts stuff has occupied my bandwidth for the last year. I write extensively about this at Substack, autonomoustruckers.substack.com. I've written for Newsweek, Compact, American Compass, all these different online magazines. That's how I ended up talking about this with Tucker Carlson. If you go to my Twitter account, at Gord Magill, you will see an interview I gave to the man himself back in January about this very topic.
Cool.
And yeah, just come find me. I'll talk to anyone. Go to my Substack, find my email address, follow me on Twitter. Also, the 4 men, massive legal bills, ongoing trials, because Tony Oleanick and Chris Carbert are still inside for no apparent reason. The Crown has no case, in my estimation. And the lawyers cost money. Being unable to generate your own income for 2 years plus costs money. So I have a Give, Send, Go set up for them. Just type in Give, Send, Go and search for Trudeau's political prisoners. And if you got a couple bucks, help these guys out. Every dollar helps, man. Lawyers are expensive. And, these guys are the vanguard of normal people being abused by commie, quasi-progressive governments. So if you can help out, it'd be well appreciated.
The links will be in the show description. We're on YouTube on my original YouTube account. I got it back after 3 years of termination. And there's only one Twitter account that is allowing me to broadcast live, and that's at Jim Fannon Live. And But I'll upload a separate copy, and I'll send you a copy of it if you want to put it up where you broadcast as well. But appreciate your time, man. Give my love to the family, especially your wife. You know, there's behind every great man is a great woman, a greater woman.
That's right.
Solid woman, you know. So thanks for hanging in there, man. I know it's not easy. It's never easy. You know what I mean? So I'm proud of you, brother. I love you, and I appreciate the time, and let's get caught up again soon. And right at the end there, you succinctly laid it all out. It's a simple story, and you put it in about 30-second elevator pitch there, man. And we gotta talk about it. So I'm gonna let you go. Then I'm gonna show your pages, and the links are in the show description below. So thank you for your time, Gordo.
Goldilocks. Thanks again for having me, Jim.
Anytime, bro. Peace. Sorry about the open. The open, we had a misfire because my UPS died today. My uninterrupted power supply went down, and I don't normally broadcast. I'm down in the corner there, right there, normally. Don't do full screen Jim Fannon, ever. So let's get rid of that. Here's Gordy's links. Gordylocks. Can't do that. Move it over here. Okay. Here he is on the Twitter at Gord Magill, Magill. Here is the here. I'm going to put it in. This is his Substack. I'll go over here and put it in the comments. So yeah, we had a power outage, so we lost the open, and then we did get him for an hour after that. So I think we got what we needed. Gord Magill on Twitter. Over here. So in the comments, I'm going to put everything here. But if you're watching on YouTube, it should be in the show description. Here's the Give, Send, Go. That'll go here. Josh Bigger's coming up. Who have I got next week? I got Marty from up north next week. And Josh Bigger the week after. Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Don't ask me why. I think I'm bringing the Jim Fannon Show back again. Newsweek. Here's his Newsweek author page. I think everything he's written is there. And then I think we've hit them all. Here's an article. This will not show up in the Twitter comments, unfortunately. I don't think my bot, my Restream bot, will propagate. Although it's, if I post it on Twitter, it'll propagate, but I don't think it's propagating from Restream here. So that's that. Substack, Twitter, Give, Send, Go, Restream, and Gord Magill at Newsweek. All right. Thanks for checking out. Oh, peace, love, hug your neighbor, and if you got a little bit of North American equity, why not, I don't know, cash it in and bring it down to the North Shore of Dominican Republic in a town called Sosua. I'm a Sosua guy, but if you prefer cabarete, muy bueno. I'm not on the South Shore, but if you want to go to Punta Cana, I do have a connect down there as well. I love you. I am out.